Hey, how's everybody doing? It's Anastasia Forrest, broker associate with eXp Realty. I'm guessing most of you know me since this is live streaming on Facebook. I had scheduled a guest today. Her name's Dana, and real excited about getting her on the show sometime soon, but she is not going to be making it today. So we're going to improvise, which is basically what I do every day. And I'm here, just me. And I'm excited to be here, excited to be doing the 29th episode of The Creative Real Estate Agent. Pretty amazing that this is episode 29. We're almost to 30. I was also realizing today I'm about to go into my 5th year of real estate because I started in September of 2017. So it's been an amazing week, I have to say, and this is going to go along with the topic I'm planning to talk about today. And this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I've got a lot going on with real estate, which is wonderful. As you guys may know, if you've been listening to the show, I sometimes talk about there being downtimes when things are a little slower, and I definitely was experiencing a little bit of a slower time for the summer, and it really worked out well because I got to spend lots of time with my kids, and I just kept telling myself that it was meant to be. Everything was happening exactly how it was supposed to, and when things are supposed to happen, they will happen. And guess what? They are happening. They are happening a lot. So after this, I'm actually heading over to Palatka. If you're not familiar with Florida, Palatka is, a bit southwest of St. Augustine, about 45, 50-minute drive, and going to a waterfront home inspection over there. Beautiful place with a nice long dock and nice, almost like 3,000 square feet of living space, beautiful porch, and just beautiful house. So fingers crossed that just goes awesome. Yeah. So let me kind of break into today's topic. So today, what I want to talk about is, first of all, consistency. For, I think, a lot of creative people, and if I'm wrong, let me know. Engage with me, reach out to me. I think consistency is a bit harder for us creative people sometimes, and maybe all the time. I think it's something we have to work a little bit harder at developing. Not to say it's a skill that not everyone has to work for. I think you have to be intentional about being consistent, regardless of whether you consider yourself a creative person or not. But for creative people, there's this part of us that is intensely rebellious for one thing and curious for another. And we have ideas, a lot of ideas, and a lot of whims, and a lot of, inspiration. And sometimes that strikes suddenly. And sometimes we don't want to do things the same way every time. We're usually trying to find a new way to do something. Even if we've done the same thing for 100 times, we're probably going to be looking for some new way to do it. Because that's part of being creative, is approaching a problem or an activity in some kind of new way. So when you're running a business or even doing a project, like let's take my podcast, for example. I created the Creative Real Estate Agent podcast to connect with other creatives and to talk about living a life that is both productive business-wise and also rich and juicy and creative. And I wanted to share my experiences on that journey, and I wanted to talk with other people, whether or not they're in real estate or not, and talk with other people that are doing the same journey and share stories and share experiences and learn from each other and put it out there for others to learn from and enjoy. So this sounds great, right? It's a cool project. And but it requires some consistency. Not only, am I basically committed to be here every Friday at around noon, I'm also committed to basically, well, not basically, just doing it. Basically, I keep wanting to say basically, editing the show, audio wise. And my wonderful husband, Sean, helps me out with that. I'm very kind of him. And also, I edit a video. I, put it on YouTube. I put it on the podcast distributing company I use. It's called Buzzsprout. So I upload things. I also write, I have to plan these interviews. I have to book these interviews. I have to research the person. So all of it requires some consistency. That part does require consistency. It's like, okay, I know I need to do this by this date in order to achieve this goal that I've set, to have this podcast go out consistently. So there's that. But then there's also details like this guy right here, this mic, the microphone I'm speaking into right now, if you guys, are just listening and not watching. So there's a ton of settings for this thing. And not only do you have to plug it in, hook it up to the computer, and, have the signal go into the computer. There's also settings within the computer that's software, software form, where you have to make adjustments and tweak it. And honestly, like I think on my 4th episode, I realized my sound was not good. It was like, what happened? Oh, I did something a little different than last time. I didn't realize what I had done until after. And then I realized, oh, that's why it sounds horrible. It's because I don't remember what it was I did, but the mic was not in the right spot. It also has to be in the right spot. There's a lot to think about. And so after that episode, I was disappointed because it was a really good discussion. I was like, darn it, and it was with somebody else. So it was like, darn, I did edit it the best we could. We made it work. But after that, I vowed to myself that I was going to be consistent. And I was going to check the mic every single time and set it up the same exact way and do it the same exact way, as hard as that might be for me as a creative person to do that for some reason. And I did that for a while, really, I think pretty well, but then I forgot about being consistent. And last week I interviewed David Johnson. It was an awesome interview. You should definitely check it out. But I realized after the show, my sound wasn't very good. And also the mic, I knew the mic was slipping. I was watching it like drift down. And anyway, the show was usable. It's not like bad, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be. So as far as my sound goes, so I've recommitted myself to being consistent. And so, yeah, so it just amazes me sometimes how, we think you just do it the same way every time. Why is it hard to do something the same way every time? I don't know. But that's something that's important for us to learn and something important for us to do. In real estate, that's true as well, because there are certain parts of our job that we need to be very, very consistent at, and that includes filling out a contract, and accuracy and paying attention to all the details, and consistently following up with prospects. And the consistency is an important part of that job as well. But at the same time, it calls for creativity. It calls for creativity because sometimes we need to approach a situation in a creative way in order to work through it. Sometimes there's not a scripted, conventional answer to a negotiation between a buyer and seller. Sometimes you got to be creative and think about how you can make it work and how you can help everyone achieve the outcome they're looking for. Sometimes you have to be creative. Definitely marketing and advertising your business calls for creativity. If you've got it, use it. That's definitely going to help set you apart. So we're in a field in real estate talking to realtors that we are using both sides of our brain, at least, at least both sides of our brain. And yeah, so it's a process of learning to use both. And for me, this is fun. I'm living it. By doing this podcast, I am really diving into the whole process of balancing consistency and creativity, for sure. I'm doing that in other areas as well. I'm working on a children's album. I don't know if I've mentioned that before or not, but this week I dedicated a little bit of time, if I could, each day to opening my Logic file. That's a sound recording program for Apple, and working on tracks for one of the songs. And in order to even do that, you have to be very consistent. If you're going to get a nice mic sound or a nice ukulele sound, you've got to listen and you've got to tweak things, and just be, you have to be a little bit of a scientist, you know? And that used to be really hard for me as a younger creative person, maybe in my teens, my late teens, or early 20s or whatever. Like, I'm just now really getting better at being more scientific about things. I'd be in such a hurry to like express the creativity, and doing the other stuff turned me off, and it felt like it was suppressing the creativity and just kind of giving me a headache. So I'm learning to just approach it, and step by step, a little bit at a time, and don't try to get it all done in one day. I've got other things going on. I've got a family and career and a life, but I don't want to not do the creative project. So the way to do that is to just do a little bit every day. I actually had a dream recently, about 3-4 nights ago, and in my dream, I found a book that was written by some author that I don't think exists in real life, but in my dream, it was somebody I had known. I had some level of familiarity with. I think I'd met them. And they gave me a copy of the book they had written. And I really, I was like, oh, this is so inspiring. They wrote this book. And I was flipping through the book, and I got to the end of the, between the cover and the last page. And there was this note that had been left in the book, I think for me, and the note said, it said, stick with it. Stick with it. 3 words, stick with it. And I loved this dream because, for one thing, I always want to read in my dreams. And sometimes it's so frustrating when you can't read. Like, I'll get a letter, or I'll be looking at a newspaper article and I want to read it, but it's just like gibberish. Or my dreams shift to something else and I lose that image. But in this case, I was able to read the note, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really good advice. Stick with it. And to me, I took it to apply to what I'm working on in the creative children's album area, but also with real estate. You got to stick with it, because it can take a long time for your seeds that you've planted to sprout. For example, one of the deals I'm working on right now that's closing next week, a lot deal. The first time I reached out to the seller was over 2 years ago. And just now, just as of a few weeks ago, were we able to get something, was I able to get a deal for the buyers, that worked for everyone. So it took relationship building, it took patience and being personable. I feel like our breakthrough moment honestly came when I asked how she was doing, and she told me, and she asked how I was doing, and I told her I was having insomnia and I wasn't sleeping very well, or I hadn't slept very well the night before, and she recommended like a tea for me. I honestly feel like after that, like, she warmed up to me more, and we were able to she softened more to the idea of working with these buyers and selling her property to them. So just be human, be relatable. You are human and you are relatable. So just show that to other people. We don't always have to put up a facade, nor is it necessarily conducive to building a long-term, trust-based business. So yeah. And so it seemed like once that happened, it seemed like the waters just really started flowing. And it's almost been like one thing after the other since then. In fact, right before I got on here to do this podcast, got a phone call from another agent that he's sending in an offer for our listing, a listing we have, Sean and I. So, wow. So I'm like, this week, I mean, there's other stuff that happened this week too. Like I said, I'm going to inspection today, putting in another offer for a different party today as well. So I'm just like amazed by the way that things can just all start happening. But it seems like that is life, you know? And so when I actually was just talking to Sean on the phone before I went on this podcast, and he said I should talk about manifestation and how things happen. And I think I will touch on that too. So we have a 4-year-old, her name's Ophelia. And lately she has been sort of doubting magic, like the existence and reality of magic, which is fine. She's 4, like she needs to learn, you know, what's real and what's not real. But I think her idea of magic is like Disney's Frozen magic, like Elsa, you know, casting spells and freezing things. And I think in school they must be learning, you know, the difference between fantasy and reality, which obviously we need to learn at some point. But so she's actually has said to me recently, she said, Mom, there's no magic. Magic's not real. She actually said she said, we're in Florida and that's why we have no magic, which I thought was hilarious. But just the connection. She's learning 2 important things, right? We live in Florida. This is where we live. And apparently we have no magic. So it makes me think about, you know, it's like, yes, okay, yeah, we don't have Elsa magic, but life is very, very magical, you know, and that's something she'll learn and she'll experience. But call it magic, call it coincidence, call it serendipity, or even miracles. But there's something really cool that happens when we open up to receiving, and we don't demand what we're going to receive. We set intentions. We like work on ourselves so we could be a good receptor or conduit, or serve, use whatever we receive to serve the world and serve others. So we can work on ourselves and prepare, obviously prepare ourselves. But just there's something very magical that happens when we get out of our own way. And I think that's something creatives can relate to, because whether you write songs or you write books or you dance or cook, the element of creativity that comes in is kind of magical. It's not something we're logically thinking about. It's a different part of our brain. It seems like it's not even from us. Sometimes it seems like it's from a totally different place. Maybe something maybe we made a connection that we didn't even know, where it came from. For example, the guy that I think discovered, or I think he was a scientist, and he discovered the DNA double helix. Pretty sure that came to him in a dream. Like he'd been working on it in real life, but then he dreamed about it and it all came together. So like things like that, like it seems like it's coming from outside, from a greater source. So I guess my point is to just stay open, wherever you're at with your business, with your creativity projects and your life. Just don't close the doors, and don't rush to fill in the gaps. Let there be a little bit of uncertainty. Let there be a little bit of space to fill in, because you don't really know what it's going to be filled with. It's probably something better than what you imagine. It's probably something you really need, because that's what you're bringing. That's what the universe wants to bring you, is what you actually really need. It might not be what you think it is, and it might be what you think it is, and it might be that. But either way, it's great to stay open. It also is a lot less stressful, and it's a lot less painful. I think with the real estate deals and stuff too, I got to the point, and I'm doing a lot better with it too, where I'm not as stressed about them, and that's wonderful because I'm sleeping. I've been sleeping great this week in general. And just even though there's more going on than ever, I'm developing a better ability to put it all in perspective and realize like my whole life isn't riding on that one deal. And it really has very little impact on my well-being. It really isn't personal. It really isn't all I've got going on. Like it's just a piece, and I'm just here to serve. And so I can kind of let go of some of a lot of the stress and the insistence on things should be a certain way in my head. So that's a wonderful place to be because you can do a lot from there. So I am going to wrap this up. This is a short, little sweet episode. Next week, I hope to be back on with another guest. If not, you will find me here. But yeah, I need to look at the calendar and find out what day next Friday is. So I will be doing that. I do have some exciting guests coming up, which is why I'm not sure if it's next week or a future week. But regardless, I hope you all are doing great. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.